My name is Marcus Chen, I'm 34 years old, and until 18 months ago, I was a senior financial analyst at Deloitte in San Francisco. I had what most people would call a dream life, a six-figure salary, a downtown loft with bay views, and a reputation for being the guy who could spot financial irregularities from a mile away. My colleagues used to joke that I could smell cooked books the way some people smell rain coming. I'd spent 12 years building that skill set, working my way up from junior analyst to someone companies actually feared during audits. My expertise was forensic accounting, tracking money trails, uncovering fraud, finding the numbers that didn't add up. I never imagined that skill would end up destroying someone's life and changing mine forever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This story starts on a Friday night in March 2024, with what should have been a celebration dinner. My girlfriend Sarah Mitchell, 32, a marketing director at a tech startup, and I had been together for 3 years. We'd just gotten engaged 2 weeks earlier, and I'd planned a special dinner at Bellissimo, this upscale Italian restaurant in North Beach that had opened 6 months prior. The place had been getting incredible buzz. Everyone was talking about it. The chef, according to the press, was some hotshot from New York who'd trained in Rome. The owner was a guy named Vincent Rossi, 41, who'd supposedly sunk his life savings into creating an authentic Italian experience in the heart of San Francisco. We arrived at 7:30 p.m. on March 15, 2024. I'd made reservations 3 weeks in advance because the place was always packed. The hostess, a blonde woman in her mid-20s, barely looked up from her phone when we walked in. "Reservation name?" she asked, not making eye contact. "Chen. Marcus Chen. 7:30 reservation for 2. She scrolled through her tablet with all the enthusiasm of someone filing taxes. "I don't see it. That's impossible. I made it 3 weeks ago. I have the confirmation email." She shrugged. "System shows nothing. We're fully booked tonight. You'll have to come back another time." Sarah squeezed my hand. She could see I was getting frustrated, but she was always the diplomatic one. "Is there anything you can do? It's a special occasion, we just got engaged." The hostess looked at Sarah's ring, a custom-designed platinum band with a 1-carat diamond that had cost me 3 months' salary, and her expression didn't change one bit. "Congratulations. Still don't have a table. Maybe try calling next time closer to your reservation to confirm." That's when Vincent Rossi himself walked over. He was a stocky guy, maybe 5'9", with slick-back dark hair and an expensive suit that looked like it was trying too hard. Gold watch, gold rings, the works. "Is there a problem here?" he asked the hostess. "Not us. They claim they have a reservation, but it's not in the system," she said. "I don't claim to have a reservation," I said, pulling out my phone. "I have a reservation. Here's the confirmation email, dated February 22nd. Rossi glanced at my phone for maybe 2 seconds. "System glitch. Happens sometimes. But as you can see, we're packed tonight. Nothing I can do." "You could honor the reservation I made in good faith," I said, keeping my voice level. "Look, buddy," Rossi said, and I hated how he said, buddy, like we were anything close to friends. "I run a business here. I can't just make tables appear out of thin air. You want Italian food, there's an Olive Garden in Daly City." Sarah's grip on my hand tightened. I could feel her embarrassment radiating off her like heat. Other diners were starting to stare. The whole situation was humiliating. "This is unacceptable," I said. "You confirmed my reservation, I showed up on time, and now you're dismissing me like I'm nobody." Rossi stepped closer, and I could smell his cologne, something expensive and overwhelming. "Tell you what I'm gonna do for you, buddy. I'm gonna let you walk out of here with your dignity instead of calling security. How's that sound?" I wanted to argue more, but Sarah was tugging on my arm. "Marcus, let's just go. It's not worth it." We left. I was furious, not just angry, but that deep, humiliated kind of fury that sits in your chest like a stone. We ended up at a Thai place down the street, and the food was actually great, but the whole night felt ruined. Sarah kept trying to make light of it, but I could see she was disappointed too. When I got home that night around 11 p.m., I did what any frustrated customer in 2024 does. I wrote a Yelp review. I wasn't cruel or unfair. I was honest. I gave Bellissimo 2 stars and wrote, "Made a reservation 3 weeks in advance for a special occasion. Arrived on time with confirmation email. Was told reservation didn't exist and was spoken to rudely by both staff and owner Vincent Rossi. Owner was dismissive and condescending, suggesting we go to Olive Garden instead. Unprofessional service that completely ruined what should have been a celebration. Can't comment on food since we never got to eat there, but customer service is severely lacking. Would not recommend." I posted it and went to bed, figuring that was the end of it. I was so very wrong. The next morning, Saturday, March 16th, I woke up to 17 missed calls and dozens of text messages. My phone was blowing up. Confused and still half asleep, I checked my notifications. Vincent Rossi had responded to my Yelp review, but he hadn't just responded. He'd gone nuclear. His response read, "This customer, Marcus Chen, is a liar and a con artist. He showed up at my restaurant drunk and belligerent with his escort girlfriend, making a scene and harassing my staff. He never had a reservation and tried to bully his way in. When we politely asked him to leave, he threatened violence. We have security footage of the whole thing. This man is clearly unemployed and jealous of successful business owners. He's probably never eaten at a real restaurant in his life. Anyone who believes his lies should check his other reviews. He's a serial complainer who tries to extort free meals. Do not trust this fraud. We're considering legal action for defamation and harassment. Banned for life." I read it 3 times, my heart pounding harder with each pass. Every single word was a lie. Every single word. But it got worse. Way worse. Rossi had somehow, and I still don't know exactly how he did this initially, found my LinkedIn profile. He'd taken my professional headshot and posted it in the comments of his response with a caption, "This is the face of a scammer. Spread the word. Don't let him con you too." The review had gone viral in San Francisco's foodie community. Local restaurant Facebook groups were sharing it. People were commenting, taking sides, most of them defending Rossi because Bellissimo was popular and trendy. I was being called everything from a entitled yuppie to a pathological liar to worse things I won't repeat. Someone had found my personal Facebook and Instagram accounts. My DMs were flooded with hate messages. "Hope you get fired, you lying piece of garbage. Karma's coming for you, fraud. You're a disgrace to the Asian community." That last one especially stung. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new unreleased stories here every day. Each one more intense than the last. Sarah called me at 9:17 a.m., crying. "Marcus, people are sending me messages. They're calling me an escort. My mom saw it. She's asking me what's going on." "I'm handling it," I said, but I had no idea how to handle it. I tried to report the response to Yelp for harassment and defamation. I tried to get the post taken down. But Yelp's review process moves slowly, and in the meantime, the damage was multiplying by the hour. By Monday morning, March 18th, things had escalated beyond my worst nightmares. Someone, and I'm 99% sure it was Rossi or someone he paid, had sent an anonymous email to my boss at Deloitte. The email contained screenshots of the Yelp exchange and alleged that I was unstable, aggressive, and potentially dangerous to clients. My boss, Patricia Holloway, 51, called me into her office at 10:30 a.m. She'd been my mentor for 6 years, and I could see the discomfort on her face. "Marcus, I need to ask you about something concerning," she said, sliding a printed copy of the email across her desk. I explained everything, the missed reservation, the rude treatment, my honest review, and Rossi's completely fabricated response. Patricia listened carefully. "I believe you, Marcus. I've worked with you long enough to know your character. But corporate is worried about optics. This is getting attention online. Clients are asking questions. Until this blows over, I'm going to need you to take a leave of absence. Paid," she added quickly. "Just until we can sort this out." I was being punished for telling the truth. That week was a nightmare. Sarah's company got similar anonymous messages about her, questioning her character and professionalism. The harassment continued online. Someone created a fake Twitter account in my name that posted offensive content. I had to hire a lawyer just to send cease and desist letters and try to get the fake accounts taken down. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I checked my phone, there was some new horror. And through it all, Bellissimo continued to thrive. Rossi had somehow turned the entire situation into publicity for his restaurant, playing the victim of a malicious attack by a disturbed individual. But here's the thing about financial analysts: we're patient, methodical, and we know how to dig. I spent that first week of forced leave in a dark place, feeling helpless and violated. Sarah was supportive, but I could see the strain this was putting on our relationship. Her parents were concerned about her marrying someone involved in a scandal, even though there was no scandal except the one Rossi had invented. Then, on Thursday, March 21st, at 2:47 a.m., I remember the exact time because I'd been lying awake for hours, something clicked in my brain. Vincent Rossi had destroyed my reputation over a 2-star review. He'd lied, fabricated evidence, harassed me and my fiancée, and possibly cost me my career. He'd done all of this so easily, so viciously, and with such confidence. Why? What kind of person responds to mild criticism with a thermonuclear response? Someone with something to hide. I got out of bed, went to my home office, and opened my laptop. If Rossi wanted to play dirty, he'd picked the wrong target. Because what he didn't know was that before I was a senior analyst at Deloitte, I'd spent 3 years working with the IRS's Criminal Investigation Division, tracking money laundering and tax fraud. Had opened in September 2023. I pulled up the business registration filings, which are public record in California. The restaurant was registered under Bellissimo SF LLC, with Vincent Rossi listed as the sole owner and managing member. Next, I looked at commercial real estate records. The building Bellissimo occupied was owned by a holding company called Pacific Shore Properties. The lease agreement wasn't public, but property tax records were. The building was assessed at $3.2 million. I pulled up Bellissimo's business license and permits, health department, liquor license, entertainment permit. All seemed in order, at least on the surface. Then I started looking at Rossi himself. His LinkedIn said he'd owned several restaurants in New York before coming to San Francisco. I started searching for those businesses. 2 of them had closed within 18 months of opening. One had closed after a fire that was deemed suspicious by local news articles, though no charges were filed. Interesting. I dug deeper. Court records in New York showed that Rossi had been sued 3 times by former business partners, all alleging fraud or breach of contract. 2 cases had been settled out of court. 1 had been dismissed on a technicality. Very interesting. I spent the entire night digging, barely noticing when the sun came up. Sarah found me at 7 a.m., still at my computer, surrounded by printouts and notes. "Marcus, have you slept at all?" she asked, concerned. "I'm onto something," I said. "Rossi's not clean, Sarah. Nobody reacts that extremely to a bad review unless they're afraid of scrutiny." Over the next 2 weeks, I became obsessed. I used every database I had access to through my professional memberships. Even though I was technically on leave, I still had my credentials. I ran credit reports on Rossi using pretexts that were probably legally gray. I found public records in 3 states. I cross-referenced business filings, tax liens, lawsuit documents. And slowly, a picture emerged. Vincent Rossi had a pattern. He'd open upscale restaurants in major cities, run them for 12 to 18 months while they were trendy and packed, then they'd either close suddenly or burn down. Insurance claims would be filed. He'd walk away with money and move to a new city. But that wasn't the smoking gun. The smoking gun came on April 3, 2024, when I managed to get my hands on something beautiful, Bellissimo's business bank account records. I can't tell you exactly how I got them. Let's just say that when you've worked in financial investigations for years, you develop contacts. People who owe you favors. People who believe that sunlight is the best disinfectant. The records were damning. Bellissimo was showing gross monthly revenues of $180,000 to $200,000 on paper, impressive for a restaurant that size. But when I analyzed the actual transaction data, I found something fascinating. The same credit card numbers appeared over and over again, sometimes multiple times per night, with large bills. I cross-referenced those card numbers, partially redacted, but enough to work with, against publicly available data breaches and found something incredible: many of these customers didn't exist. The cards were processing, the money was moving, but the people weren't real. Rossi was running a classic revenue inflation scheme, probably to either secure loans based on false performance metrics or to launder money from another source. Maybe both. But it got even better. I noticed that Bellissimo was paying $28,000 per month to a food supplier called Artisan Provisions SF. That seemed high. I looked up Artisan Provisions SF. The business was registered to Vincent Rossi. Same address as his home in Pacific Heights. He was paying himself through a shell company, inflating costs, and pocketing the difference. Classic embezzling technique, except he was doing it to his own business, probably to hide assets or reduce tax liability. Then I found the piece of resistance: insurance policies. Bellissimo carried a $2.5 million insurance policy for fire, damage, and business interruption. Given his history of restaurants mysteriously burning down, I had a pretty good idea what was being planned. I had enough evidence to bury Vincent Rossi, But I didn't want to just report him to the authorities and let the slow wheels of justice turn. He destroyed my reputation publicly, viciously, and without mercy. I wanted him to feel exactly what I'd felt. I spent another week planning. I'm a methodical person by nature, and I was going to do this right. I created a detailed dossier, 67 pages of evidence, cross-referenced and annotated, with a clear narrative that anyone could follow. Bank records showing fake transactions. Business filings showing the shell company. Comparisons of reported revenue versus credit card processor statements. Evidence of his pattern across multiple states. I made copies, digital and physical. I encrypted the digital versions and stored them in 3 separate secure locations. Then I did something that surprised even me. I hired a private investigator. Her name was Rebecca Torres, 38, a former FBI agent who now ran her own firm specializing in corporate investigations. I paid her $15,000 to verify my findings independently and to keep digging for anything I might have missed. Rebecca came back to me on April 22 with additional gold, photographs of Rossi meeting with a known insurance fraudster from New Jersey. Cell phone records, obtained through methods I didn't ask about, showing calls between Rossi and this guy spanning 6 months. Text messages discussing the plan and the payout. Rossi wasn't just running a garden-variety financial scam. He was planning to burn down Bellissimo, collect the insurance money, and disappear with probably close to $3 million in total gains. Now I had everything I needed. On April 28, 2024, at exactly 6 p.m., I executed my revenge. I'd created a website, registered anonymously through a foreign hosting service, called The Real Bellissimo, The Truth About Vincent Rossi and Restaurant Fraud. The site was professionally designed, easy to navigate, and devastating in its content. Every piece of evidence was laid out clearly. Bank records, with legally required redactions, but enough visible to tell the story. Incorporation documents. Photographs. News articles about his previous restaurants. Court filings. The works. But the homepage featured something special, a video. I'd recorded myself, sitting in a neutral-looking office setting, wearing a suit, looking calm and professional. "My name is Marcus Chen," I said to the camera. 6 weeks ago, I posted an honest 2-star Yelp review about poor service at a San Francisco restaurant called Bellissimo. The owner, Vincent Rossi, responded by falsely accusing me of being drunk, belligerent, and operating as a con artist. He posted my photo online, encouraging harassment. He sent anonymous messages to my employer and my fiancé's employer, attempting to destroy our careers. He nearly succeeded. I paused, looking directly into the lens. So I decided to look into Mr. Rossi's background. What I found was a pattern of fraud spanning multiple states and many years. This website contains evidence that Bellissimo is operating as a front for money laundering and insurance fraud. I've reported these findings to the FBI, the IRS, the California Department of Insurance, and the San Francisco District Attorney's Office. This website exists to inform the public and to set the record straight. I am not a con artist. But Vincent Rossi very much is. The video was 12 minutes long and meticulously presented. Every claim was backed by visible evidence that appeared on screen as I spoke. I launched the website at 6 p.m. By 6:05 p.m., I'd posted links to it on every San Francisco food group on Facebook, every local subreddit, Twitter, and sent direct messages to every food blogger and restaurant critic in the Bay Area. I'd also sent a carefully worded email to the San Francisco Chronicle's investigative journalism team. I included a link to the website in a new comment on my original Yelp review, along with the words, "Since Mr. Rossi accused me of lying, I thought the public should see the actual evidence about who's really being dishonest here." Then I sat back and watched the internet do what the internet does best, spread information like wildfire. Within 30 minutes, the website had 2,000 views. Within an hour, it had 15,000. Local food bloggers were writing about it. The story was being shared across social media with comments like, "Holy shit," and "This is insane," and "I can't believe we've been eating at a money laundering front." At 7:43 p.m., my phone rang. It was a reporter from the San Francisco Chronicle named Jennifer Walsh, 45, who'd been covering the restaurant scene for 15 years. "Mr. Chen, I'm looking at your website. This is explosive. Can you verify that you've actually reported this to federal authorities?" "I have confirmation numbers for all agencies I contacted," I said. I can provide them to you. I want to run this story, but I need to verify some things first. Can you give me 48 hours? Take whatever time you need, I said. The evidence isn't going anywhere. By 9 p.m., Bellissimo's Yelp page was being bombed with one-star reviews. Not fake reviews, just people expressing their shock and disgust at the fraud allegations. Came here last week, now finding out it's a money laundering operation. Disgusted. Owner is a fraud and a con artist. Stay away. By 10:30 p.m., local TV news stations were picking up the story. Allegations of fraud at popular North Beach restaurant led the 11 p.m. news on 2 channels. Vincent Rossi's personal Facebook account, which had been public, suddenly went private. Then it was deleted entirely. I didn't sleep that night. I just kept refreshing, watching the story spread, watching Rossi's world crumble in real time the way mine had 6 weeks earlier. The Chronicle ran their story on April 30th, front page of the business section. Bellissimo restaurants under investigation for alleged fraud. Jennifer Walsh had done her homework, independently verifying many of my claims and adding her own reporting. She'd spoken to former employees who described suspicious practices. She'd confirmed that federal investigators were indeed looking into Bellissimo. That same day, the California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control suspended Bellissimo's liquor license pending investigation. On May 2nd, the IRS executed a search warrant at the restaurant and Rossi's home. Federal agents spent 11 hours collecting documents and computer equipment. The restaurant was forced to close during the search and never reopened. The San Francisco Chronicle ran a photo on their website, Vincent Rossi being led out of his restaurant by FBI agents. He looked smaller than I remembered. Scared. If you're enjoying this tale of justice, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Drop a comment and let me know what you think is going to happen next. The story exploded nationally. CNN picked it up. So did Fox Business and MSNBC. San Francisco restaurant owner accused of $1 million fraud after harassing customer over Yelp review was the headline that went everywhere. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. If Vincent Rossi had just ignored my 2-star review or responded professionally, none of this would have happened. He could have continued his scheme indefinitely. But his pride, his cruelty, his need to destroy someone who'd mildly criticized him, that's what brought him down. On May 8, Vincent Rossi was formally indicted on 17 federal charges: wire fraud, bank fraud, money laundering, insurance fraud, and tax evasion. The DA's office estimated he'd stolen or defrauded approximately $2.8 million over the past 4 years across 3 restaurants. The same day, my boss Patricia called me. "Marcus, we'd like you to come back. With a promotion and a raise. Corporate realizes we made a mistake, and we're sorry for how we handled things." I turned it down. Because something else had happened in those 6 weeks of investigation and planning. I discovered I loved the hunt. The investigation. Taking apart complex financial schemes and exposing the truth. I resigned from Deloitte and used my savings, combined with a small business loan, to start my own forensic accounting and fraud investigation firm. I called it Chen Forensic Consulting. My first client. A class action lawsuit against Vincent Rossi from Bellissimo's investors and creditors who'd been defrauded. I was hired as their expert witness. But that's not the most satisfying part of this story. In July 2024, Bellissimo's assets were seized by the federal government. The restaurant, the equipment, the liquor license, everything was going to be auctioned off to pay back creditors. On August 3, 2024, I attended that auction. The restaurant space and equipment were being sold as a package deal to cover part of what Rossi owed. I was the highest bidder. I bought Bellissimo for $380,000, about 60% of its actual value, because nobody else wanted to touch anything associated with the scandal. Sarah thought I was crazy. "Marcus, you're a forensic accountant, not a restaurateur. What are you going to do with a restaurant?" I smiled. "I have an idea." I hired a new management team, people with actual experience in the restaurant business. I brought in a real chef, a woman named Maria Gonzalez, 52, who'd been running a beloved taqueria in the Mission for 20 years but had always dreamed of doing fine dining. We completely renovated the space, changing the aesthetic from Rossi's tacky gold and marble look to something warm and welcoming. We renamed it Honest Italian, a not-so-subtle reference to the restaurant's previous owner. We opened on October 1, 2024, almost exactly 7 months after that disastrous night when I'd been turned away. The story had generated so much publicity that we were fully booked for our first 3 months. People wanted to eat at the restaurant that had been at the center of one of San Francisco's biggest fraud scandals. But here's what made it truly special: we made it genuinely good. Maria's food was incredible, real Italian techniques, fresh ingredients, reasonable prices. We trained our staff to treat every customer with respect and dignity. We honored every reservation. We responded professionally to every criticism. And we hung something special in the entrance, a framed printout of my original 2-star Yelp review, with a plaque that read, "The review that changed everything." We promised to earn 5 stars from every guest, every time. We earned them. Within 6 months, Honest Italian had a 4.8-star rating on Yelp with over 800 reviews. Zagat rated us. Michelin gave us a mention. We became one of the hottest reservations in the city, not because of the scandal, but because we were actually good. Vincent Rossi went to trial in March 2025. I testified for 2 days, walking the jury through the financial evidence. The prosecution's case was overwhelming. On April 8, 2025, he was convicted on all 17 counts. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay $2.8 million in restitution. His assets were seized. His house in Pacific Heights, the one he'd bought with stolen money, was sold off. He lost everything. The sentencing hearing was the first time I'd seen him in person since that night in March 2024 when he'd kicked me out of his restaurant. He looked broken, defeated. When the judge read the sentence, he didn't react. Just stared at the table. As I left the courthouse, a reporter asked me how I felt. "Justice isn't always fast," I said. "But it's thorough." My life changed completely after all this. Chen Forensic Consulting grew rapidly. Turns out, there are a lot of businesses trying to hide something, and a lot of people looking for someone who can expose the truth. I built a team of investigators and analysts. We work with law firms, insurance companies, investors doing due diligence, and sometimes just regular people who think they're being cheated. Sarah and I got married in June 2025, a little over a year after the whole nightmare began. We held the reception at Honest Italian, of course. Maria made us a 7-course tasting menu that people still talk about. The restaurant continues to thrive. I'm not involved in day-to-day operations, I'm not a restaurateur. Sarah was right about that, but I own it, and I make sure it operates with integrity. Every employee gets a living wage. We source locally. We treat customers like human beings deserving of respect. And here's something I didn't expect: we've become a second-chance employer. We hire people who've been released from prison, people recovering from addiction, people who just need an opportunity. Because I learned firsthand how quickly someone can try to destroy your reputation and your livelihood, and how hard it is to rebuild. There's a young guy who works in our kitchen now, Tony Rodriguez, 24, who served 2 years for a nonviolent drug offense. He'd applied to 38 restaurants and couldn't get hired because of his record. We took a chance on him. He's now our sous chef and one of the hardest workers I've ever seen. He tells me all the time that this job saved his life. That's what the restaurant means to me, not revenge against Rossi, though that was satisfying. It's proof that you can take something corrupt and broken and turn it into something good. I still think about that night sometimes, March 15, 2024, standing in the entrance of Bellissimo, being humiliated and dismissed by a man who thought he was untouchable. If Vincent Rossi had just been decent, if he'd just said, "I'm sorry, there's been a mix-up, let me see what I can do," none of this would have happened. He'd probably still be running his scam, and I'd still be working at Deloitte, completely unaware. But he couldn't help himself. He had to be cruel. He had to destroy someone over the mildest criticism. And that cruelty revealed everything. The Yelp review is still up, by the way. I never deleted it. But I added an update: since this review was posted, the restaurant has come under new ownership and management. I'm happy to report that Honest Italian is now a 5-star establishment. Highly recommend. People sometimes ask me if I feel bad about what happened to Rossi: 12 years in prison, his life destroyed, everything he built or stole, taken away. I don't feel bad. Not even a little. He made a choice to respond to criticism with harassment, lies, and cruelty. He'd made many choices before that: to defraud investors, to launder money, to plan insurance fraud. Those were his decisions. I just brought them to light. I didn't destroy Vincent Rossi's life. I exposed it. There's a difference. The real lesson here isn't about revenge, though the revenge was admittedly satisfying. The real lesson is about consequences. For years, Rossi had operated with impunity, hurting people, stealing money, manipulating systems. He believed he was smarter than everyone else, that he'd never be caught. All it took was the wrong person, someone with the skills, resources, and motivation to look closely. That's the thing about criminals who get away with it for a long time, they start to believe their own invincibility. They get sloppy. They take unnecessary risks. They antagonize people they should leave alone. Vincent Rossi decided to destroy a financial fraud investigator over a 2-star Yelp review. That was his fatal mistake. Me. I'm doing better than I ever imagined. My firm is thriving. My marriage is strong. I own a successful restaurant that makes people happy and provides good jobs. I sleep well at night knowing that I took something corrupt and replaced it with something honest. And every time I walk into Honest Italian and see that framed Yelp review in the entrance, I smile. Because it reminds me that actions have consequences. That bullies can be stopped. That the truth, when exposed properly, is the most powerful weapon there is. Vincent Rossi is in federal prison right now, in a facility somewhere in California, serving 12 years. He'll be 53 when he gets out, with a felony record, no career, no assets, and a name forever associated with fraud. I'm 34, running 2 successful businesses, happily married, and known in my industry as someone who exposes the truth and helps people. Sometimes I wonder if he thinks about that night, if he replays it in his head during those long hours in a cell, wondering what would have happened if he'd just been a decent human being. If he'd just said, "I'm so sorry, we'll fix this," instead of escalating a minor issue into an all-out war. Probably not. Men like Vincent Rossi rarely take responsibility for their own downfall. He probably blames me, tells himself he was the victim, convinces himself that he did nothing wrong. But it doesn't matter what he thinks. What matters is that his restaurants will never hurt anyone again. That his scams are over. That every person he defrauded got at least some justice. And what matters is that a negative Yelp review, 2 stars, honest and fair, ended up leading to me owning the restaurant, reforming it, and turning it into something that actually serves the community. Not bad for a night that started with a missed reservation. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts about new stories like this one. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.